Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler, and boy, I am disappointed in the internet grifters right now because, man, are they being very grifty, let's just say. Like, I'm not going to subscribe intelligence to them, but let's just say they're grifting as hard as possible. And I'm not even going to talk about the grifters trying to cancel people in America today. That might be tomorrow. I'm specifically talking about people listening to politicians, taking them at their word, and then saying, see, I told you all along. It's like, oh my gosh. Now, specifically, I'm thinking about this in context with Canada because it came out late last week and over the weekend that Carney is looking for a deal with the Chinese. He has been for a while. Nothing new there, but it looks like it's going further because not only did Carney come out and give a glowing, verbal, so did G. So, like, of course that's what they're going to say. But, again, why would you trust what Carney says, especially when it looks like we could be going to an election as early as December? Now, I'll say this again. A December election for the Liberals is not a great idea. But that being besides the point, all politicians do is spout hot air, especially in the era of Trump. Look at what Carney said in the last election. Oh, he said he'd be so tough on Trump. He'd get a deal on Orange Man bad, and we'd explore other options. And to a lesser degree, some of that is true, but no deal, no nothing. Like, he said he'd be super committed to the environment, and what has Carney done? He started to roll back some of that in minor ways. Like, oh, carbon tax set to zero for a little bit. The pullback on the mandatory EV nonsense. Again, it's slight pullback, but again, Carney's opening up the mining sector here. That went by everybody's head because that came out late last week. If I could find the article. Yeah, I found the little article. In boost to mining industry, Canada commits to stockpile critical minerals as national security. And he also said to NATO, hey, we're going to pay our share of NATO commitment with critical rare earths and minerals. It's like, that's anti-environment to the environmentalists nowadays. Well, I should say the climate hawks, which, again, Bill Gates rolled that back too recently. Why are we trusting the words that come out of their mouth? Like, especially right now, it's election time. Like, I remember when I was a kid listening to my parents, specifically my dad, remind me every time an election came up, whether it was an important American election or Canadian election, that every politician was spouting hot air. You have to look towards their previous actions and their actions once they're elected to honestly review them. If we look at Carney and honestly assess, is he actually going to get closer to China? There's a possibility there. But if you look at what Brookfield Asset Management has been freaking doing in the last 6-7 months, they're leveraging themselves into the United States. Like, they're getting into an American, I believe, critical minerals company. They've also got into an American pipeline company. Like, you're not going to completely cut off Canada from the United States. Like, it's not remotely feasible. Okay? There are reasons for the things he's done, and I've put out many videos on this because apparently critical thinking is not a skill that people on the internet want to have or use anymore. And I've been fairly right so far, so, you can go back and check all that stuff out. But again, why are we trusting politicians in just the general with what they say? What did Pierre pander about when he was running for Alberta in that by-election? He said, the first thing, or it was slightly after he won and he would be in Parliament again, is, hey, the first thing and the most important thing the Conservatives are going to do, we're going to completely roll back these EV mandates. This is our number one objective. Like, that's straight up, this is a paraphrase of what he said, but that's what he was saying. Did that happen? No, because the Conservatives don't do shit. You get the minimalist of pushback from them on anything. And yet, people were out there believing it. And again, it's looking like we're going to be going into an election cycle sooner rather than later. Some of us thought that was a very good possibility from the beginning of this, especially when it became true that it was a minority government and any vote could break it. Or any vote of record could break it. On record, I should say. So, again, this also doesn't just apply to Canada. Look at the United States. Like, Donald Trump, America first, no new wars. Didn't do too well. The shutdown of the government, Trump is not communicating with his base, and now there's a fracturing going on. There's a fracturing going on over Israel, too, which, he said he would put America first, and not so much when it comes to what's going on with Israel. Now, he did walk that back slightly when he started to apply pressure to Netanyahu, but, he's wasting the government shutdown on foreign policy instead of Americans. Like, Jesus, man. Take the temperature of the room. You're going to screw yourself in the midterms. Accidentally, because I don't think you understand what's going on. But yeah, why? I can't believe in the era of social media where you can find in 30 seconds the direct quote that will contradict anything a politician says from their own mouth. All right? Are we taking, especially someone as slimy as Carney, at their word? He's a central banker. All they do is lie and propagandize the people that they are the all-benevolent rulers of the economy. When they don't control shit, they react to everything. They're not proactive, they're reactive. Reactionary revolutionaries are more forward thinking than a central bank. Be real there. Even by their own backwards ideology. It's ridiculous that people are out here saying, hey, I'm going to trust what that politician says. Especially when they're a former central banker and have lied their ass off. Go look at Carney's statements as the, is it governor of the Bank of England? Whatever, when he was in charge of the Bank of England. And look at the outcomes that happened. Straight up lies. You don't even have to go back to the 2008 crisis and how we've been trading sideways at best since then. What was it? A week before the big Stellantis 3,500 job layoffs, what was Carney out there parading about? We're going to protect Canadian jobs. And now we're just going to trust that he's realigned himself to China in a matter of months. Now, Could that happen? Absolutely. But I don't believe it. I do not believe it. The way Carney won and the way this election is shaping up is let's be real. There is foreign interference from the United States by Donald Trump in the way he's communicating to and about Canadians to get Carney reelected, or to get him elected, then reelected. Like, that's just straight up what appears to be happening, and it looks like Carney's in cahoots with Trump. Again, if we look at Carney's actions over the last, again, since, what is it, 7 months now, almost, the election, he has slowly been checking off Donald Trump's list. There has been crackdowns on fentanyl smuggling. There's been a little bit of crackdown on the banking sector with the money laundering. There's been multiple bills proposed that would give Carney the control. Now, to do a lot more stuff with the border, that is not, they don't need to be passed, but that's how liberals think. Are they draconian? Are they authoritarian? Absolutely. But he's been moving in this direction. It's also been moving in the direction of pipelines. The rhetoric on that has changed slightly. I was seeing before the Orange Man Bad stuff blew up again, I was starting to see leftists argue we needed to have pipelines so that we could resist the United States. Like, I predicted that. We have to go down that way. And yet, here we are, yet again, taking a career liar at his word. I am so baffled that the fact that, there are people in Canada that do this, but on a bigger scale, and just rage bait and rage farm people, and just whip them up into a frenzy. They may not understand exactly that they are working for the establishment they hate when doing so. Some of them may be cutting checks, but I bet a lot of them don't understand that by not sitting down and thinking critically about it and being like, well, is there an actual case to say that Canada is going to realign with China? What evidence do we have of this? Now, we know there's Chinese infiltration in Canada. Absolutely. I'm not going to... Chinese have infiltrated everywhere. But can that infiltration be completely trusted? Because you're paying off leftists, the people who do not believe in a damn thing but their own power. And to retain power, they have to align themselves right now with the United States, because that's what their puppet masters, the people in positions of power and have the wealth in Canada, need as close to the status quo with the United States as possible to remain that. And there's not enough of a new money type of people that would realign with China, other than the Chinese communists who fled here, who are sleeper agents or spies, or however you want to dictate to them. Like, everything else that China does, like buying farmland, all that stuff that's allowed to happen, that can be, again, explained by money changing hands, which it almost guaranteed does. But when it comes to, hey, I need to get reelected to continue to have access so that I can insider trade and all this stuff and do all these kickback programs that everybody's now just learning about, they need to stay in power. And can China do that to them? As a facade, yes. Because again, the people backing them need the status quo to stay the same. Look at what the Europeans are trying to do with Donald Trump and suckering him in to focusing on Ukraine and Russia constantly and trying to keep him sucked into that conflict. That's because they need that to happen. Otherwise, they have to completely reorganize their society. They need the status quo to remain. They need Big Brother America to be there. To be their defensive arm. Well, offensive arm, let's be real. But they need them as the sword and the shield to Europe so that they can continue to play their dumb power games without wasting their own treasure on sword and shield activities. Donald Trump is the only one who's out there really screaming, let's shake up the system. Now, there's a few people around him that are also saying that let's legitimately shake up the system to our benefit. And then, there's the Marco Rubios saying, hey, let's do regime change. You're getting a little bit too on target there, bud. Let's go foreign policy hunting. What should we do? God, I still can't believe there's people that are trusting politicians, especially Carney. I mean, like, Trump's a smooth talker and can change his mind on a dime, so he doesn't really exactly lie all that often. But, like, again, Carney is from the investment banking industry who literally hire people to create false narratives that are then disseminated through the mass media machine so that they can make an extra 10 to 30% on trades that are already profitable into the billions. Then he transitioned into the central bankers that lie about everything. Like, I think the biggest lie about central banks is that they're there to control jobs and inflations. No, they're there to keep the status quo of the system, of the banking system. They're there to make sure the banks, that there is a fallback for the banks because they don't want to deal with a banking crisis. Like a legitimate banking crisis, not the, hey, we have a couple of banks fail, but they're going to get bought up. I mean, the banking crisis of, say, the Great Depression, where you go from, like, actual banks went defunct and, like, nobody bought them up because nobody could. Like, those problems, not the consolidation banking crises that we have come to know, where JP Morgan Chase continues to grow by buying up, well, by being extorted by the Fed, really. Say, hey, Jamie Dimon, you're going to buy this shit. You're going to get a good deal on it, but you're going to buy it. And we'll bankroll you to a certain extent. We'll make sure you're safe. Like, that's the difference. And then he became a lying politician. Like, these are the people that took Trudeau at his word. Apparently. Like, Jesus. That's the video for today. Hope you enjoyed it. See you tomorrow with something. Till then, have a good day.